We just refinished this concrete driveway. Now this is part 2 of part 1. It's the same exact driveway. It's an old school, just whitewash it kind of thing, but I'm going to go into detail about doing it, and at the end I'm going to answer a lot of questions that people sent me comments on. I live in Pennsylvania, and I'm just going to show you what it's like on this driveway in the winter before I go any farther. Now here's John removing the snow off the driveway. Now here's that driveway in the winter time. That's typical in Pennsylvania where I live. Before I go any farther, I want to show you the weather where I live in northeastern Pennsylvania in the winter. During the day it's 34, at night it's 30, below freezing. It's 35 during the day, 19 at night. It showers, it snows, 40 during the day, 27, 39, 22. It keeps freezing and thawing, and that's why I said when I do my videos, it's in Pennsylvania. Because what works in Florida doesn't work in Pennsylvania, works in Pennsylvania, doesn't work in California, works in California, doesn't work in Alaska. So you got to know what area they're doing it for and why they do it that way. So the reason we didn't do it last year is because it held up good, but this year it faded away. You can see some of the old stuff here, and we're going to look at what kind of day do we want to do this in. See, it's cloudy out. I don't want a full sun. I want it cloudy because I want the cement to dry slowly. Now let's say you got an edge here, and you got two choices. You either build this up with a cement towel, or you could grind this down. And what I use is a grinder like this. I'll explain it at the end. See, now you don't have that tripping hazard, and you could keep grinding that down if you want. Or you have a big bump here. See, it's got a little high spot. You could grind that down. And then you don't have any ledges to trip over. So that's another way to do it. Now I ground that edge down. You see that edge I just ground down? Yep. And we're going to wash it, get all the dust off it. But the reason we did that is when he's using a snow shovel in the winter time and everything, he won't be hitting that. You can go as deep as you want and do what you want with it. Now we're going to wet the whole driveway down first because we want to make sure the driveway's wet. Yep, we're going to wet the whole driveway first. Let that water sink in. Okay, just so you know, and you know the measurements the way I'm doing it, I get a gallon of water. Doesn't matter where you get the water from. I'm putting a whole gallon in here. So I got the gallon. Then I'm going to get myself some glue. Now this is one of the glues I'm using. This is another glue I'm using right there. To me, it's all the same. I'm not depending on the glue. But I'm going to take an 8-ounce cup like you get from McDonald's, like John said last time. I'm going to put it in. Put in a little more, a little less, whatever you want, and mix it up. That's the water I'm going to use. Now I'm going to take Portland cement, doesn't matter who makes it, and I'm going to put it in my little pan. Doesn't matter how much, because what I'm going to mix is probably going to do the whole thing. Put it in there, then add the water I mixed up, and mix it up into a paint. People ask me, could you put sand in it? Well, you could, but for something like this, though. You don't have to. I'm going to mix this into a paint. Just like that. Mix it up real good. It's pretty close. So that's it. Pretty much got it all the same consistency. That's pretty good. So that's it. That's about what I want it like that milkshake. I'm gonna start up here in the corner. Now, this is wet. This is wet from the hose. See it? Up here it's dry a little bit. It has to be wet. If it ain't wet, it's not gonna stick. So then, just get my paintbrush. Doesn't matter. Start painting it in. Go over anything. How you doing this paint? You don't want it too thick. You want it just where it's not running and not too thick. You paint over everything. It don't matter. All this is a covering. That's all it is. So we don't paint ourselves in a corner, right, John?
Nope. I've done that before. I've done that before.
Yep, just put it in. All this is a covering. Do this whole driveway in 40 minutes. Done with it. Paint over the cracks. You can always go over it again. No big deal. John decided to paint everything. We're gonna paint the mailbox, the flowers.
Let's not go that far.
The car.
Let's not go that far.
We're gonna paint everything. So when you're going over a crack like this, get some thicker stuff on the bottom. Just go over it, that's all. Hides that crack. You always go over it again. It's gonna crack anyway.
Is it important to keep wetting it, Mike?
It has to be wet.
Yeah, each block that you do or each section, make sure it's wet, right?
Right, yeah. We're doing a block at a time. Has to be wet. See what I'm putting on with the hose? It has to be wet. This is real time. We're going to go right over the wetness. Don't play with it. Let it sink into there. Explain all this stuff as we're going. Now the question is it sometimes too wet? Yeah, well this is a little too wet, because if you could see too much through it, then it's a little too wet. Best thing to do is experiment. Always experiment. A little too wet, but not bad. So we're going to just keep going. If we wanted to do it again, we could. People ask me, Mike, can you use a roller? No. You want to get it in there. You want to get it in them seams. I never use a roller. Just put it in. Tom Sawyer. Whitewash. This is wet. I can see that it's going on a little too thick. Don't want it too thick, so I'm just going to wet it down a little bit to make sure it's wet. Can't emphasize that enough. See that? That's just perfect. Just enough where you can't see through it. That's when you're doing good. Now, I was in the Navy in the early 70s, and we used to paint the whole ship in one day. And John, last time I did a video, everybody wants to thank you for your service in Vietnam. You were wounded twice. I just got to pass it on. You got anything to say about that?
Anybody from the 2nd 39th, 9th Division? Where are you?
Yep.
Haven't seen you in 35, 40 years. Give Hippie a email. How's that, buddy?
Yeah, now we got help. My sister showed up. I put that on record.
No, oh no.
Can't emphasize enough, you have to keep it wet. Not too wet, where the water's running. Has to be wet.
Has to be wet, Dad. Has to be wet.
Yeah.
There will be no talking while we do this.
I'm going to unionize this shop.
Yeah.
This is why women rule the world.
Yeah, I know they're starting to rule the world, aren't they, John? One way or the other. So we're finishing up. John, how long did it take us to do this?
I'm going to say probably we're at it right now painting about 45 to an hour.
45 minutes to an hour. We got the whole
We had
driveway
2 people,
done.
And we weren't doing too good. And
And then my sister
came,
showed up, and then
and
everything
just
slowed down.
knuckled She just knuckled us down.
Yeah, my sister slowed up and slowed us up real bad.
You know what I mean? We don't have time to take a break or nothing.
Yeah, and then just wash the brush right out. That's how you gotta do it.
That's the money, don't worry.
This is like 45 minutes later. Look at, when you're looking at it, you see the dry spots? That's how you know it's drying. That's still wet, but it's drying a little at a time. That's what we want. We don't want it drying too fast. So the longer cement takes to dry, the better off you are. See, down the other side it's all wet. Here it's starting to dry up. And let's look at the day. Now this is the kind of day I'm looking for. I want it to be cloudy, but no rain on the radar and no chance of rain. Either that or do it right before nighttime. Now we're looking at it. We started doing this at 8 o'clock. It's now 10 o'clock. So you can see it's drying up pretty good. Not too fast. That's what I want. I don't want it too fast. Now this is 5.5 hours later. This is what it looks like at 1:30. Now it's 6 o'clock the same day, and we're just putting a light sprinkle on it to keep it wet for the next day overnight. So we're back here a few days later, and we wet it down a bunch of times and kept it wet. And I just kind of want to show you that it's not perfect, but it works. The last time I did this video, part 1, I got a ton of questions, and a lot of them were the same questions. So what I want to do is answer those questions so everybody has a good idea. First of all, do you really need a bonding agent? The old school people never used a bonding agent. That's like a new school thing. The last 20 years it showed up. I know the stucco guys use it. I never use it. I just throw it in because I think it might help a little bit and it gets it to dry slower. But do you really need it? No. That bag of cement and that bonding agent might have been $10 for the bonding agent, maybe $12 for the cement. So for 25 bucks you do the whole thing. This is another one. If you had good concrete, that would never happen. I've been doing this since the 1960s, and I've seen so many trucks come and get turned away because of bad concrete. That's why they have testing. I did a site called Industrial Concrete Work, Rebarb Forming and Testing, Mike Haduck, where at the very end of that video, they test all the concrete. But if you're a regular guy, you don't have anybody testing your concrete. You don't know if that guy put too much sand in it or too much cement. When I worked in those big warehouses, I'd see one pour be dry faster than the other pour. So that tells you something. Not all the time you order concrete, maybe 3,500, 4,000, 4,500, you're going to get that. It's always different. I've seen some jobs fall apart instantly and some jobs last for 50 years. So it all depends on the day, the weather, the mix, the water, the cement they used. Everything depends. A couple people wrote and said, this is nothing but a flip the house gimmick. Well, yeah, you could look at it that way. All you're doing is covering it. It's just like if you're doing blacktop. First thing you go, you get the blacktop patch, you patch it. Then you go buy the sealer and you seal the blacktop driveway. If you have an old car, you get a rust spot, you sand it down a little bit, get a little spray paint and spray it. All you're doing is covering something old. Another one, can I add color to the concrete? Well, you could, but to me, for a driveway, it's not worth it. Brush or a roller. I like a brush. I mean, a brush goes right in there, you get in all the cracks. A roller is like laying it on top. When you're doing a driveway, you want to get that cement into them cracks. No, I'd never use a roller. Should I power wash it or acid before I do this? It's just a covering. I mean, do it once, do it twice, it lasts a year, who cares, you do it again. So if you want to go through all that trouble, you could. Should I put sand in with the Portland? You know, you could. They have, like, when you buy paint, you can get a non-skid paint and they add sand into it. But do you really need it? It depends on the circumstances. Maybe if it's a big slope, you want to. Here it's pretty flat. The stuff we put in, you know, it's not slippery. So if it's not slippery, I don't think you need it. Can I do 2 coats? Yeah, you could. I wouldn't do it the same day. If I was going to put another coat on, it'd be the next day. Would you do it over stamped concrete? You could. Stamped concrete around my area doesn't last. I don't do that. I never got into that. There is ways to fix it. You just got to be more creative, that's all. How long does this take to dry? Because I was walking on it and my feet were chalky. I give it 24 hours before I start walking on it. What type of cement Portland do you use? Type 1 or 2. I haven't seen anybody ever sell anything except 1 or 2. It doesn't matter. It's all, to me, it's the same. Do you do this for other people? No. I only do it for family and friends who understand exactly what's going on, because this is not something that's going to last, and I don't want any callbacks. If you're just going to do it every year, make it look good. It's like throwing a cloth over a picnic table as far as I'm concerned. Should I seal it when I'm done? Well, I can't see that. See, this system, it just kind of flakes away, it goes away, and then you do it again. Do you wet it down after you're done? Yes, I am. Tonight before we go to bed, I'm going to sprinkle it and let that water stay in that. And when you wet something down like that, after a day or two, that's going to bleach like a white. Now people ask me, could I use white cement? Yeah, they make white cement. You don't have to dye this. You could just go to a brickyard and ask white Portland cement. But when you get regular cement like this, it depends on what company you get it from, but you wet it down, it's going to bleach white. You're going to notice that. And if one part was undercover and one part's out in the open where it rains all the time, part where it rains all the time is going to get wet. So driveways are okay if the whole thing is exposed. If one part's undercover, it's going to be darker than the part that gets wet. So it's just a way to make cement. Now, do you ever use the store-bought concrete resurfacers? Well, resurfacers. Here's one right now. I'm going to take you to a job I did a couple years ago. We didn't resurface it in a couple years. I watched the way the professional people supposedly do it, and they use a broom. But I don't do that. I use a sponge float. I want you to see this. It's just a float with a sponge on it. Here's the one I'm still using. It's an old one. But I'm going to take it to my cousin's sidewalk, which I got to do a video on that again. And we redid it, and I used a sponge float to put that in. Could you do it on your regular driveway? Yeah. But I'm still under the same opinion. You got to put it on real thin and really get it on here. So let's go look at that before we go any farther. Got to wet it down real good. You can do it once a year. Make the sidewalk look brand new. See that? Just sponge it in, a light coat. You don't have to go heavy. All you're doing is filling in the pot marks. Same thing. Is it going to last? Nope. Every year, this is 2 years, it held up pretty good. We know if we're going to use this stuff, you put a real thin coat on. Now that was a different product, and if I have an affiliate site, you could go into the description. I'll show you where I buy these sponge floats, but you could usually buy them at any hardware store. Can I paint my driveway with regular paint? No way. Not where I live. I never do it. I see where the water gets in it. You've seen what the winters look like here. The water seeps in there and it peels that paint right up. Now I do it on garage floors. I wouldn't use these techniques on garage floors. I use regular paint on a garage floor or a basement floor. That's a whole different thing. As long as it doesn't get freezing weather. You'd have to ask the paint stores for that. So I do have other videos, and I have these videos on how I repair concrete steps. Same techniques I use that, what I've been using for the patio. And you've seen me where I grind that sidewalk down. And the other way is you either got to fill in with a patch or you got to grind it down. That's the grinder I'm using. I'm using a 4.5 inch DeWalt grinder. And here's the product right there. Also, I have other grinders. This is a Makita. This is a Portugal. I use them for different things. They're all the same, 4.5 inch grinder. I have an affiliate in my description box where you can go and look at it and you can see those products and what they're selling for. If you get a grinder though, you get a decent one. You get them cheap ones, they only last a couple weeks and they're done. That's the end of the video. I hope you get something out of these videos. It's just an old way the old timers would do. A cheap thing, it's a covering, a cheap fix. If you got a pothole, you fill it in, you paint over it, it looks all good again. You could either sponge it in with the new products or paint it in like I did with the old school stuff. At the beginning of my videos I always say Pennsylvania, and that's because what works in Florida doesn't work in Pennsylvania. What works in Pennsylvania might not work in California, and what works in California might not work in Alaska. It's all different. They can't just put it in a book and shove it to you and say this is the way you do it. Certain masons do certain things in certain areas. So I hope you got something out of it. It's a cheap fix until it's the last resort before replacement. But this is what the old timers did when I was a kid and I used to watch them do it. I'm just passing it on. So thanks for watching. I'm Mike Haduck. That's the end of the video. And removing the snow off the driveway. Driveway in the winter time. That's typical in Pennsylvania where I live.